Welcome to News Edge, your sharpest source for daily headlines and deep dives. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stay ahead of the curve. The US and Canada have long enjoyed a close and mutually beneficial economic partnership, sharing the world's longest undefended border and deeply integrated economies. For decades, goods, services, and people have flowed freely across this border, fueling growth and prosperity on both sides. This relationship has been a model of international cooperation, with both countries relying on each other for trade, investment, and innovation. But that partnership is now under serious strain, as tensions rise and uncertainty grows among businesses and workers alike. A major trade dispute has erupted, threatening jobs, livelihoods, and economic prosperity on both sides of the border. Communities that once thrived on cross-border commerce now face an uncertain future, with many fearing for their financial security. At the center of the conflict is a stalled trade deal and a dramatic US move, sharp tariff increases on key Canadian goods, which have sent shockwaves through both economies. These tariffs, jumping from 25% to 35%, specifically target Canada's steel, aluminum, and auto industries, the backbone of its economy and major sources of employment. The impact is immediate and far-reaching, affecting not just large corporations but also small suppliers and local communities. The result? Uncertainty and tension, with businesses and workers caught in the crossfire. Many factories have slowed production, and some have even shut down, leaving families worried about their future. For decades, most Canadian exports to the US were duty-free, but these new tariffs hit where it hurts most, jeopardizing billions of dollars in trade and putting thousands of jobs at risk. The normal, predictable flow of trade has been disrupted, and both governments are scrambling to protect their economies. Emergency meetings and late-night negotiations have become the new normal as leaders search for solutions. The world is watching closely as two of its closest allies face off in a high-stakes economic showdown, with global markets reacting to every development and investors bracing for further volatility. The dispute is more than a headline. It's a real threat to jobs, families, and entire industries. The ripple effects are being felt in communities large and small as uncertainty spreads. Leaders in Washington and Ottawa must now find a way to resolve their differences before lasting damage is done. The pressure is on to reach a compromise that will restore stability and confidence. The stakes could not be higher for North American stability, with the outcome likely to influence not just these two nations, but the entire continent's economic future. The future of this historic partnership hangs in the balance, as both sides weigh their options and consider the long-term consequences of their actions. The next moves will shape the economic landscape for years to come, determining whether cooperation or conflict will define the next chapter in US-Canada relations. Trade talks between Canada and the US have collapsed, leaving both sides at an impasse. Canada's top negotiator left Washington empty-handed, signaling a complete breakdown in progress. The US responded by raising tariffs to 35% on Canadian steel, aluminum, and autos, a direct blow to Canada's economy. This wasn't just a bargaining chip, it was a show of force meant to pressure Canada back to the table. The result, a climate of crisis and uncertainty for businesses and workers. Negotiations are expected to resume, but deep disagreements remain. The new tariffs have turned partnership into confrontation, eroding trust and goodwill. Canadian companies now face steep new costs in their largest market. The stakes are higher than ever, and the path forward is blocked by fundamental differences. Both nations must find a way to bridge this divide or risk further economic pain. The world is watching to see if diplomacy can prevail. The future of North American trade hangs in the balance. Canada's government is standing its ground, determined to protect the nation's interests in the face of mounting international pressure. Refusing to accept a bad deal under pressure, Canadian officials are making it clear that they won't be rushed or bullied into an agreement that doesn't serve the country's long-term needs. Minister Dominic LeBlanc insists Canada will only sign an agreement that truly benefits the country, emphasizing that every detail is being scrutinized to ensure fairness and mutual gain. Prime Minister Mark Carney calls for a reset in the US-Canada relationship, seeing the dispute as a symptom of deeper issues that have been simmering for years, not just a temporary disagreement. In response to American tariffs, Canada has imposed its own tariffs on a range of US goods, sending a strong message that it won't back down easily or accept unfair treatment. This tit-for-tat approach is risky, but Ottawa believes caving in would weaken its position in future talks and set a dangerous precedent for future negotiations with other countries. The government is balancing toughness with a willingness to negotiate, hoping to avoid long-term damage to the vital economic relationship between the two countries. Retaliation could escalate the conflict, leading to more uncertainty for businesses and workers, but giving in isn't an option for Canada's leaders. Canada is walking a tightrope, projecting strength while seeking a diplomatic solution, knowing that the stakes are high for both sides. The ultimate goal is a fair, stable partnership for the long term, one that supports jobs, growth, and prosperity on both sides of the border. The risks are real, but so is the resolve to defend Canadian interests, with officials and citizens alike united in their determination. Talks will continue, with negotiators working late into the night, but the outcome is far from certain, and the world is watching closely. The next steps will define Canada's economic future, shaping the country's place in the global economy for years to come. The U.S. justifies its tough stance by linking trade to national security, arguing that the safety of its citizens and the integrity of its borders are at stake. Officials point to issues like fentanyl smuggling across the border, emphasizing the need for stricter controls and vigilance. At the same time, American officials argue that Canada's trade barriers make it hard for U.S. businesses to compete fairly, putting American jobs and industries at risk. The new tariffs are seen as leverage to push Canada toward a deal that addresses these concerns, hoping to level the playing field for American companies. But the U.S. is frustrated by Canada's retaliatory tariffs, viewing them as an escalation that could spiral into a larger conflict. This marks a shift from past cooperation to a more confrontational approach, straining a relationship that has long been defined by partnership and mutual benefit. The U.S. president believes previous trade deals were unfair and is determined to put America first, making it clear that American interests will take priority in every negotiation. The goal is to rewrite the rules to better serve American interests, ensuring that future agreements reflect the needs of U.S. workers and industries. This strategy is about more than just tariffs. It's about reshaping the entire relationship, redefining how the two countries interact on trade, security, and diplomacy. Whether this approach leads to a better deal or a damaging trade war remains to be seen, as uncertainty ripples through markets and communities on both sides of the border. The stakes are high for both countries, with thousands of jobs, billions in trade, and the future of North American cooperation hanging in the balance. The U.S. wants more than economic gains. It wants security, fairness, and a system that it believes truly protects its people and its future. Meanwhile, Canada faces pressure to respond without making things worse, seeking to defend its own interests while avoiding a full-blown trade war. The outcome will set the tone for future North American trade, influencing not just the U.S. and Canada, but also their partners and competitors around the world. The world is watching to see who blinks first, as the decisions made now could reshape global trade for years to come. Inside Canada, debate rages over the government's response to the trade crisis. Some support standing firm and retaliating, arguing it's the only way to earn respect and avoid a bad deal. Others warn that a prolonged fight could devastate Canada's economy and urge a quick compromise. The government faces a tough balancing act: defend national interests or protect economic stability. Business leaders worry about the ripple effects of a trade war, while unions back the government's tough stance to protect jobs. The split is clear. There's no easy answer. Every path carries risks and rewards. The debate plays out in boardrooms, newsrooms, and communities across the country. The government is under pressure from all sides as it navigates this complex dispute. The choice of strategy will shape Canada's economic future for years. The stakes are enormous for industries, workers, and the broader economy. The world is watching how Canada responds. The next move could define the nation's place in North American trade. The trade dispute with the U.S. poses serious risks for Canada's economy, especially in steel, aluminum, and autos. These industries are vital, employing hundreds of thousands and anchoring supply chains. Prolonged tariffs could mean job losses, falling investment, and slower growth. Business leaders warn that Canada can't afford a long trade war. The longer the conflict, the greater the harm to businesses, workers, and consumers. Deep economic ties mean supply chains could break, hurting competitiveness for years. The government faces a tough choice: stand on principle, or act pragmatically to protect the economy. Every day the dispute drags on, the pressure mounts. The outcome will determine the health of key industries and the country's economic stability. The stakes for Canada's future could not be higher. The future of Canada-US trade depends on both sides finding common ground. Prime Minister Carney's call for a reset signals a desire to move past tariffs and retaliation. Rebuilding trust and cooperation is essential for a lasting solution. Talks are set to continue, offering a chance to de-escalate the crisis. The focus compromise and a new modern trade agreement. Success depends on flexibility and a shared commitment to free and fair trade. Deep economic integration gives both countries a strong incentive to resolve the dispute. Millions of jobs and billions in trade are at stake. Political pressures make compromise difficult, but creative solutions are needed. The alternative, a deepening trade war, would hurt everyone. The pressure to restore stability is immense. The next steps will shape the future of North American trade. The world is watching for a breakthrough. Beyond the headlines, tariffs hit real people. For a steel worker in Hamilton, a tariff means job uncertainty and stress for their family. Retaliatory tariffs make American goods more expensive for Canadians, straining household budgets. On the US side, farmers and factory workers face shrinking markets and possible layoffs. The pain is shared. Trade wars rarely hurt just one side. Economic hardship spreads to families and communities in both countries. The dispute also strains the sense of friendship and shared identity across the border. Years of goodwill risk being eroded by rising tensions. The human cost is both economic and social. For many, the trade war is a kitchen table issue, not just a policy debate. The longer it lasts, the deeper the impact on daily life. The stakes are personal for millions on both sides. The Canada-US trade deal hangs by a thread, with negotiations stalled and tensions high. Tariffs and countermeasures have created a volatile environment, threatening key industries and jobs. Businesses and workers are left in limbo, waiting for a breakthrough. The coming weeks will test this vital relationship like never before. Success depends on bridging deep divides and restoring trust. Failure could disrupt supply chains and cost jobs for years. The dispute forces both countries to re-examine their partnership and trade policies. For now, the future of North American trade remains uncertain, with the next move set to decide the outcome.